Hey everyone, Anark here. And today we're going to talk about the group that I co-founded in 2020 called Cooperation Tulsa. Specifically, we're going to talk about what Cooperation Tulsa has done in the year of 2025. And I think you'll find once we're done with the conversation that we got a lot done in 2025. However, before I move on to telling you all of those things, I'd just like to give you a little bit of a rundown about what Cooperation Tulsa is all about. So the group that I'm part of, I co-founded in 2020 with a man named Roberto Mendoza. This was during the George Floyd uprisings, and we felt as if there needed to be a different kind of organization in order to encourage people to build alternative structures that were going to outlast the protest cycle. And in order to do this, we built Cooperation Tulsa as a sort of body to push towards a dual power approach, towards what we call prefiguration, which is building the new in the shell of the old. And this organization is based around 6 core values. Those values are direct democracy, anti-hierarchy, social ecology, prefiguration, common interest, and responsibility. These 6 core values are the points of unity for Cooperation Tulsa. A person has to agree to all of these points of unity to even be part of the group. So what this does is it creates a cohesive political entity. When we make decisions together, we're making those decisions upon a set of shared values that determine that we are going to be able to move in the right direction, that our desires, our desired end goals, are not going to conflict with one another, such that we are actually able to make quick movement and we are able to interact with the social movement as it grows. Our belief is that if you want a better world, you can't beg states and corporations to do it for you. You have to find your people and you have to do it together. And you know, we've made a lot of progress in the last 5 years since our founding. Every single year, more seems to happen than the one before. We're constantly developing new connections, gaining access to more resources, and actively building that alternative to hierarchical society. But you know, building an alternative power structure isn't always easy or fun. In fact, sometimes it's really hard work. You've got to push yourself to get back at it, even when it's challenging, even when it's exhausting, even when you have to get outside your comfort zone. However, I gotta tell you, it's a lot more meaningful way to live your life than to sit back and watch the world fall apart. So if you want to learn about how to build a revolution from the ground up, you should stick around, because today I'm going to tell you about the year of 2025 in review for Cooperation Tulsa. So first, I guess I should say that Cooperation Tulsa's biggest project, and the one that's best known for, is the management of 2.5 acres of land in the Greenwood district of Tulsa. We call this land Flat Rock, and it's named that because there's a creek nearby called Flat Rock Creek. So we were donated the land a few years back by someone who saw the work that we had done previously. You can go watch the previous video that I did about Cooperation Tulsa to learn about these community gardens that we set up. But we've only really been developing it in a really serious way for the last 2 years. And I want to talk to you extensively about what's happening at Flat Rock. However, for now, I'll just summarize by saying at the beginning of the year, it was pretty cold outside. So for the first 2 months of 2025, not much was really happening out at Flat Rock. We just had some repairs to do out on the land, and we were preparing the soil for planting that was going to come after the last frost. So you can kind of see here that we have like tarp to the ground, and this is in order to kill off the grass in this area. This tarp is 100 feet long and 50 feet wide, and the whole area ends up being used to grow tomatoes. Across all our beds, however, in ground and above ground, we plan to grow tomatoes, peppers, green onions, corn, squash, beans, and a whole lot of other things. But we're going to talk about all of that in a lot more depth later in the video. I know a lot of you who watch the channel are always asking for updates about Flat Rock in specific, and don't worry, we're going to talk at length about what's going on at Flat Rock. But while you watch that footage later on, I want you to know that a lot of other things were happening this year, not just Flat Rock. So before we get on to Flat Rock, before we get on to all the farming that we were doing out on the land, first of all, I want to tell you about all of these other programs that are going on at the same time during this footage that you'll be watching. Because all of our core members are active in the social movement. Cooperation Tulsa is not a workers' cooperative, it is not a farm, it is a political organization, and we are constantly engaged in the social movement and in building a variety of programs which affect our communities. So the first one I'm going to tell you about is the Reproductive Security Program. On May 26, 2022, Kevin Stitt signed a bill which outlawed abortion in the state of Oklahoma. So a lot of other organizations would have taken an approach of trying to pressure the systems as they stand, to have a series of protests, to start a pressure campaign. Maybe some that were a little more lukewarm would try to call their senators or something like that. But that's never our approach. Our approach is to build self-sufficiency for the people. We never want to have to be reliant on the government giving us something, because whatever the government gives us, it can take away. So instead, we created the Reproductive Security Program. And to tell you all about the Reproductive Security Program, here's one of our core organizers, Theo. So I just thought I would sit down here with Theo, who's a member of Cooperation Tulsa, and have Theo tell us about the Reproductive Security Program, which has really gotten its legs underneath it here in this last year. Theo, you want to start by telling us what the Reproductive Security Program is?
Sure. So the Reproductive Security Program is our response to the fact that in Oklahoma, people don't really have a lot of reproductive freedom. People don't have access to emergency contraceptive or long-term birth control. The access is limited here. And so part of what Cooperation Tulsa wants to do is to find the areas where the state is failing people and to create an alternate system. And so for reproduction and reproductive freedom, that was an area that we wanted to explore, giving people the right to self-determination and bodily autonomy to make decisions about their reproductive systems.
So one of the things we did was we reached out to get a grant for Plan B, or rather, I should say, Theo reached out to get a grant for us to get a bunch of Plan B. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. So about a year ago, I reached out directly to Plan B and let them know that, we're in Oklahoma, we are a 501c3 nonprofit, and we would like to do direct distribution of Plan B emergency contraceptive to people who need it and can't necessarily afford it or might not have transportation to go and get it. And Plan B granted us a pretty large, substantial donation of their product. And then I also reached out to multiple other groups in the local Tulsa area, such as Hope Testing Clinic and Take Control Initiative. And these are all orgs that are invested in reproductive freedom as well. And they also supplied a few things. And so since then, we got a phone and we set up a warm line that people can text anonymously. And that number is on our social media pages if you're interested in getting that number. And it's a way that people can text anonymously and say that they're in need of emergency contraceptive. And then we will respond within 24 hours and find a way to get these care packages to them that have several supplies in them.
So you want to tell people what are in each of those care packages?
Sure. So in each of these care packages, they come in this little brown lunch sack. And in each of them, there are 2 doses of Plan B. There is educational information, sheets about what Plan B is as an emergency contraceptive, what it is not, how to use it. And these sheets are in both English and Spanish. There is information to get in contact if you have other reproductive needs that you'd like to discuss or get help accessing. They come with many condoms, both external condoms and internal condoms. This one actually also has some lubrication in it, little single-use packs, and also some safer sex tips. And then there's also a packet of information from Take Control Initiative, which helps people access long-term birth control resources, such as if you want the daily pill, if you want the depot shot, if you want the ring, if you want an IUD that would last however many years. And Take Control Initiative actually not only pays for the exam and the clinic visit and the method of birth control of your choice, but also will pay for the transportation to get you to and from your clinic visits. So they've been extremely helpful as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you for sitting down with me. Back to the rest of the video.
Of course. Thank you.
So I just want to say that even though in the reproductive security program, the vast majority of those resources are coming from a grant from Plan B and also generous donations from a variety of other organizations, the majority of our money, the vast majority of our income comes from crowdfunding from small donors. So that's to say that almost all of our money comes from people just like you giving small recurring amounts every single month. So as you might imagine, that is a lot of work, constantly having to crowdfund, get those recurring donors back up. Like, listen to me right now, trying to get more recurring donors. I hope that you consider it. And you know, for the last couple years, we've not been fundraising very actively. We've been so engaged in all the projects you're going to hear about that we really did not have a whole lot of time to do like phone banking. And I was really not of the mindset of like doing a big live stream or anything about it. So what that meant was our income was starting to taper off. But as I tell people all the time, difficulties are not walls, they're hurdles. You have to learn to overcome the problems that you're having. So one of our core organizers, the one that you just heard talk there in the previous interview, Theo, recognized that fact. So Theo got together with some of the previous organizers we knew from an organization called Scissortail Anarchist Organization and put together a benefit show at a venue called Mass Movement. This benefit show brought together hardcore bands from all over the state of Oklahoma in order to raise money for Cooperation Tulsa. So Cooperation Tulsa attended the show, and we tabled a bunch of zines and books. We sold stickers. We gave away lots of Plan B and condoms. In fact, over the course of this year, we've given away hundreds of boxes of Plan B. And the bands who played that night were Tough Love, Shillelagh, ARF, Leash, Killjoy, and Tulip Dolls. We also had local legend Evan Hughes come out and do a stand-up show.
Yeah!
We know Ryan Walters does.
Political stuff.
And I feel like I have to mention that the owners of the venue were so generous. They gave us 100% of the door fees from that evening. That came out to somewhere around like $500. And that was an enormous help in just doing repairs out at Flat Rock. So I just want to say thank you so much to everyone that helped organize the show and all the bands that played and the venue. You were all phenomenal. I thoroughly enjoyed myself and I appreciate everybody who was involved. So while all of this is happening, one of our core organizers, Lee, has been trying to develop the defense component of the left here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And that involves the development of two groups called We Protect Us and LGBT Pew. And they did this alongside another organizer here in town named Natalie. So LGBT Pew does a lot of things. It does de-escalation training, it simulates self-defense in daily scenarios. However, the general framework for training is toward competition shooting. Competition shooting is a really good way to teach people the fundamentals, but at the same time, you give them a path toward developing good aim and good weapon management. Competition shooting is great because it's not only teaching people how to shoot while standing still, it also helps shooters get comfortable shooting while moving and acquiring new targets on the fly. We Protect Us, by contrast, is more of a social space, which encourages firearms skill development with an emphasis on queer defense training. This year, these two groups saw the largest increase in interest since the groups were founded. Lee and Natalie were even interviewed by the magazine The Pickup. If you want to read that article, the link is down in the description. Meanwhile, during the year of 2025, I was becoming involved with
FREE, the Forum for Real Economic Emancipation.
FREE, or the Forum for Real Economic Emancipation, originally started as a program that was funded by the University of Tulsa, and at that point it was called CHE, or the Center for Heterodox Economics. However, over the course of the year, I worked with Clara Mate and many other local organizers to refound the project as an autonomous organization. Free events are meant to break down the barriers between the average person and academia. And to do that, what we do is we invite keynote academic speakers to come and give talks here in Tulsa that are free to the public, and also incorporate the perspectives of local organizers and those who are affected by the issues being discussed at each event. This year, we flew in keynote speakers such as Camila Vergara, who gave a talk on how oligarchies arise.
So systemic corruption is not talking about the bad apples in the room. We get rid of, the president or whoever is in government and we will be fine. No, the system goes on in a way. It doesn't matter who is in office. The system has a life of its own.
David McNally, who discussed the interrelationship of capitalism and slavery.
Emancipation did not come from on high. Even the well-intentioned liberal myth that Lincoln freed the slaves, that is wrong. Lincoln was driven forward to take actions he had opposed because enslaved people were freeing themselves, and he had to go farther. He had to go farther because they'd already made it a fact on the ground.
John Clegg, who talked about mass incarceration in the US.
And I think the sort of big message of our sort of reinterpretation of mass incarceration is that it's an austerity measure. It's a measure that is designed to prevent the kind of costs that would otherwise have to be borne by the whole society, and particularly the rich, right? To deal with the very real social problems of inequality.
And Raj Patel, who spoke to us about our destructive food system under capitalism.
This is not a bug in the system, it's a feature. In the United States, we spend about $1 trillion a year on buying food. But then for every dollar we spend an additional dollar in this country treating the diseases that our food just gave us.
I had the pleasure of meeting all of them, and they were not only very kind, but very brilliant, and they all had a very strong understanding of the need for horizontal power. But I think it's worth noting that Free is not just another lecture series. It's actually led by a consensus council of community participants and acts as a space for people of a variety of leftist tendencies to come together and work on something transformative. I gotta say, I'm so pleased with how far Free's come, and I hope to see it grow even more in 2026. Also, don't forget to go subscribe to the Free YouTube channel. At the same time, Cooperation Tulsa continued both of its education programs, the Popular Education Program and the Organizer Education Program. For most of the year, the Popular Education Program was headed up by none other than Theo, which you have already heard mentioned twice now. They were doing so much work, it's ridiculous. In the Popular Education events, we meet up, we watch a YouTube video together, and then we discuss it among ourselves. However, Theo was doing a lot, so that's why later in the year, Theo handed the baton over to two other members, and their names are Jordan and Dominic, and they've been doing a phenomenal job at the program. So far, they've done 2 presentations, one over Proudhon and mutualism, and another over Bakunin and collectivism, and both of them were phenomenal. You can actually watch the second of those in the recorded live streams on the Cooperation Tulsa channel. I can't wait for the next one they give, and you should go follow the link in the description and join us every other Monday at 7:30 p.m. CST. On alternating Mondays at the same time, I host the Organizer Education Program. Welcome everyone to another session of the Cooperation Tulsa Organizer Education Program. Today we're going to be continuing our reading of Full Spectrum Resistance Volume 1. The Organizer Education Program is a reading group where we attempt to raise the theoretical and practical knowledge of organizers. We're currently reading Full Spectrum Resistance by Eric McBay. Full Spectrum Resistance is probably one of the best books I can imagine for this program, so you really should tune into the live stream on one of these Mondays. Also, I just want to mention that if you want to catch up, all of the past readings of Full Spectrum Resistance are recorded on both the Anark channel and on the Cooperation Tulsa channel under the recorded live streams. Just want to remind everyone who is watching on live stream, if you would like to be part of the reading group, if you'd like to actually be one of the people reading and being part of the discussion, all you have to do is go over to our Open Collective, go to the Cooperation Tulsa Open Collective, and become a recurring donor for any amount.
Black Panther Ashanti Omowale Alston adds, quote, COINTELPRO didn't destroy the BPP. It merely capped on our own weaknesses that we couldn't or didn't have the understandings and tools to transform at the time.
Their plan, somewhat naively, was to march east towards Washington, D.C., eating roasted green corn and beef for sustenance as they traveled.
King knew that he was taking on a difficult campaign that was unlikely to win. He also knew that there would be reprisals for going after such powerful interests. And I just want to remind people to go subscribe to the Cooperation Tulsa YouTube because it only has like 400 subscribers right now, and we've been making a real effort to post content on there lately. Otherwise, just tune in and watch the live stream 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on alternating Mondays from the Popular Education Program. So all of that stuff is happening at the same time as everything else you're going to hear in this video. Let's move on and talk about Flat Rock. This year at Flat Rock was by far the fastest and most comprehensive development that we've ever seen on the land. So here's a map of the land, and you can see that it's a long, thin rectangle plot. So while I was doing research for this video, I stumbled across a bunch of different satellite imagery services, and I found some really cool stuff that I kind of wanted to show you. So I'm going to hopefully work this into the video. But this right here, what you see, like this plot right here that I'm kind of circling with my cursor, that is Flat Rock all the way back in 2014. So this is well before we had the land, okay? And you can actually see like when we got the land. Here is it in 2016. You can see we still didn't have the land at that point. 2018, you can see that they were just mowing the land. right? That's all that was really going on here. They were just mowing the land year after year, and that was it. Nothing special was being done with it. The person who owned it, that was all they could really do because the city was going to get on to them. But yeah, and then 2020, we still didn't have the land, but this was right before we got it. And then in 2023, you see the first signs of us actually occupying the land, like right here where I'm circling. This is like a little lean-to shack that we made to hold lumber and so on. Then in 2024, you can see kind of like the tarp laid out over here. This is us like preparing for later on. At that point, we weren't really using the right kind of tarp. You can also see the tarp laid out right here. This is where we were first trying to kill off a bunch of grass in order to make our first path. And then in 2025, you can just see how much changed between 2024 and 2025. Just look how much changed there, right? We have like all this over here, like this is all parking area that's been established. You can see the tarp out here for this 6 garden beds have been put in. You see all these paths have been established back through the property. Here's the shipping container that we now have out there to store all of our tools and everything. Like everything developed so fast there. It was just an explosion of activity there in 2025. Just, give visual representation of how much we really got done this last year. So anyway, here are the current zones that we've established for the land. So you can see that this long rectangular plot of land is separated into 3 equal sections. The front third is designated for agricultural development. This is actually where all of the farming takes place at the moment. In the middle, we're trying to do prairie restoration. Here's where we're trying to bring back the native ecology. We're trying to restore as many of the native species of the state of Oklahoma as is conceivably possible. And in the back third, we're trying to slowly transform the already existing forest into a food forest. So that involves us kind of interplanting a bunch of fruit trees in the area. Anyway, let's talk about all the things we actually did out at Flat Rock this year, because when I look back on the year of 2025, I am just blown away with how much progress we made. So the first thing we did this year was we started crafting new garden beds. At the end of last year, somebody donated us an 8-foot privacy fence, and also she helped us install it, which is incredible. Violet, we're so grateful for your generosity. Thank you so much for arranging for the fence to be delivered and helping us install it. We couldn't have done it without you. However, even though it was an 8-foot privacy fence, we didn't want to block the view of the property because Flat Rock is a commons and we want people in the area to be able to see it and know they're welcome. So what we did is we actually cut that fence in half and we installed a 4-foot fence at the front of the property. Then we used the other half at the beginning of this year to begin building garden beds. So as you saw earlier, over the winter, we laid down a tarp that was 100 feet long and 50 feet wide, and this killed all the grass in that area. And once we pulled up the tarp, the first thing we did was begin hammering in T-posts. We split this section of 100 by 50 into 5 separate lanes. Then we put in T-posts every few feet all the way down those lanes. So the purpose of this was to prepare the area so that we could plant tomatoes, and then we could trellis them using a method called California weave. So California weave is where you take some kind of twine or jute and you intermingle it through the tomato plants, giving them something to climb onto. Before we planted anything, however, we put down compost in the in-ground beds and we put wood chips in between the beds so that it would suppress grass growth and give us somewhere to walk. After that was done with, probably about a week later, we actually planted the tomatoes. One of our members, Randall, had been growing the tomatoes indoors over the winter, and they were tiny little guys just to start with. After that was done, we installed automated irrigation in the lanes. You can see here this drip tape that we lay down. It slowly drips water into the lanes instead of flooding them with water like a sprinkler would. Also, here you see some footage of us doing lawn work. You know, in between every one of those reels that we post on social media, there's so much work that goes into maintaining the property. So like I said a minute ago, we don't really mow like 2/3 of the property because we're trying to recover the native ecosystem, but we do keep this front area maintained as much as we can because it just makes it to where it suppresses the grass so the grass doesn't try to compete with the tomatoes and all of the other food that we're growing. But just suffice to say that people are always doing work around the property. You see here that everyone's mulching the garden beds to control growth and to prepare them for all of the planting that's going to come in those beds a little bit later. You know, these above ground garden beds end up having peppers, loofah, cilantro, basil, and leafy greens like lettuce later in the year. Also, did I mention that it is absolutely beautiful on the property? When we first got the land, it was devoid of life. But these days, there's life everywhere. It's so incredible just being out there on the land. It's a little green oasis in the middle of North Tulsa. We've also done some pretty serious forestry out at Flat Rock, creating these paths in the forest in the back in preparation for tree planting. This year, we planted almost 50 trees. The varieties we planted were apples, pears, persimmons, figs, cherries, apricots, peaches, and even a native species of fruit called pawpaws. So our method for planting trees is that we dig a hole that is 1.5 feet in radius, so that's 3 feet across from left to right. Then, as we're planting the tree into that hole, we fill back in the hole half with the dirt that we dug out and half with wood chips and compost. Then after the tree is planted, we dump 2 or 3 buckets of water onto the soil, and you can see how happy these trees look after we do that method. The ones that fared best were definitely the apple trees, however. So we'll replant the varieties that didn't make it through the summer this year in 2026. Also, we are constantly maintaining a compost pile, so here you can see that we are building a new compost pile, which is going to be used in the year 2026. So we tried to turn and water this compost pile very regularly over the course of the year, and it got pretty hot over the course of the year. It even stayed hot when it got below freezing. So I think we're doing a pretty good job there, but I'm not going to spend too much time talking about piles of rotting organic matter. Let's talk about the harvest. So the above ground garden beds ended up growing habanero peppers, Scotch bonnet peppers, lemon drop peppers, cilantro, basil, loofah, and several varieties of leafy greens. We also grew some bee balm, which isn't edible, but pollinators absolutely love it. In ground at the head of the lane, we also grew some glass gem corn. These were replanted seeds from the previous year, and we set up sprinklers to make sure that it did well. Speaking of that, the water was running pretty often this year. Sprinklers for the corn, drip strips for all the tomatoes and the above ground garden beds. We even established some new lanes further out on the property where we grew cantaloupes and sweet potatoes. Meanwhile, the tomatoes are coming in, and the majority of tomatoes we planted were Roma tomatoes. However, partway through the season, we also planted some beefsteaks for the tomato plants that weren't doing exceptionally well. Next year, we'll probably plant some indeterminate tomatoes. We were hoping we'd get one big yield and we'd get to process it all at once into salsa. However, that didn't really work out super well. It'd probably be a lot nicer to just have like tomato vines producing tomatoes for the entire year. So we're definitely going to be focusing on doing indeterminate tomatoes next year. Anyway, as the season went on, the peppers came in amazingly well. We got an enormous yield of the lemon drops and the habaneros and the Scotch bonnets. The loofah also yielded pretty well. Probably only about half of it ended up being usable, but several people got some really big loofahs, and you just peel the skin off and you cut it up, and it's basically a sponge like you would use in a shower or in a sink or something. You know, all in all, we harvested almost 200 pounds of food this year, and I suspect we can do a lot better than that in 2026. So now let's talk about preparation. To begin with, all that cilantro and basil, which we were actually harvesting throughout the year, it all got dried and crushed, and it is being stored in jars. A lot of the tomatoes were just eaten whole by members, but a lot of it got made into tomato paste as well. Even though we planned to make salsa, we didn't end up really getting a big enough harvest to make a big batch of salsa. So we just did a bunch of experiments with the tomatoes, trying to make it into hot sauce, trying to make it into various tomato products. That huge harvest of peppers all got either dried or pickled or ground up and mixed with the tomato paste for a variety of those food experiments I discussed. Also, I get this question a lot, so I feel like I'll just address it here in the video. A lot of people ask, so what do you do with all this food you're growing? Well, at the moment, our first priority is to just feed the people who come out to the land to help us plant and grow the food. That's what we feel like is our main priority. Then the second priority, if we have more than the people who are doing the work can eat or want to eat, we try to distribute that to people in the community through whatever means are most convenient. Then after that, if theoretically something were left over, we would hopefully sell that at like a farmer's market or something. Ideally, once we get really good at growing food, we want to start a workers' cooperative. And once that happens, we'll flip that priority list. So the first priority would then be selling the food, and the workers would then be compensated with a wage. And then whatever's left, then we would distribute that directly to the community. However, for the moment, those who come out and do the labor are eating what we grow. And sometimes we have enough to feed the people in the community as well. But being a member of Cooperation Tulsa isn't just work. We're also developing a community, and Flat Rock provides an excellent third space. It's a place for us to host social events and gatherings. So this year, we actually hosted a whole bunch of bonfires. And these bonfires really demonstrated Flat Rock's potential as a social space, as well as a place for production at the same time. All the bonfires turned out incredibly well. You know, we really took away from this that our communities are starved for third spaces. Every one of these we hosted, we put in minimal effort and got 30 to 40 people who wanted to come out to a bonfire. I can't tell you how gratifying it is to be around all of these people who are doing such hard work in the community, who are organizing for an alternative power structure, who've been out at the work days, doing work out on the land, harvesting things and growing things, and then for all of us to get to relax together around a bonfire that's on that land we've been developing. It's so gratifying. I can't even explain. So those bonfires were happening mostly toward the end of the year. And you might think like, okay, well, that's got to be it, right? Like, all those programs you're doing all year long, you got the bonfires, you got Flat Rock. But no, towards the end of the year, we actually had like 3 really big wins in close succession. The first is that 2 of the members of the Free actually pooled money together and they paid for us to get electricity installed out at Flat Rock, which is huge. We have been needing to get electricity hooked up on the land ever since we got it. So this has been 5 years in the making, and I cannot thank you 2 enough. That's Clara Mate and another person whose name I haven't gotten permission to say, but I think Clara would be fine with me mentioning her. Thank you so much. You 2 are amazing, and trust that electricity is going to go to good use. We have power tools that we haven't been able to use. We have like a table saw, we have a chop saw. None of that was usable beforehand because we couldn't plug it in. So this is going to make a huge difference to our ability to get things done, to build things, and to fix problems out on the land. Also, it allows us to hook up a heater or hook up a fan or something if it's like really hot or really cold. Like, it makes an enormous difference to our quality of life out there on the land doing all that hard labor. And right after that, somebody in our community reached out and they donated us a car. They gave us a 2008 Pontiac G5. So I appreciate you so much. Once again, I haven't got the permission to say her name, but I appreciate you enormously. This is going to be also a big jump forward for the organization. We do have to fix it up, not currently running, but once we do, we'll have something that can do ride shares. People can share this in order to go pick people up, for example, and then we can fill up the gas tank and know that that is gas that Cooperation Tulsa has paid for. It's just an enormous boon to the organization itself, and the members of the organization will then have a car that we can use among ourselves. So I'm so thankful as well for the donation of the Pontiac. It's definitely going to make a difference in the coming year. And the last big win is that one of our new volunteers, they asked us questions about the kinds of things we need. And within just a week or 2, they were talking with somebody and that person donated us a 20-foot by 10-foot hoop house or a greenhouse. We've been needing a greenhouse for years as well. We kept talking about how we were going to acquire it, but it turned out the community provided. And that's why it's so important to be involved with your community. That's why it's so important that whatever kind of prefigurative project that you develop, that you're not isolated, that you're part of your community, that you're present, because you can not only help them, but they have all kinds of connections, which can then be very helpful for you as the people that are trying to prefigure these new power structures, to be able to develop those power structures without begging the state or begging corporations or begging for grants. So I'm so appreciative to everybody who donated here at the end of the year. I just cannot tell you how satisfying it is to know how much we got done this year, and the community has just been so enormously generous in helping us develop the land out at Flat Rock. At the beginning of November, I made this itemized list of all of the things that we've talked about in the group that we need. And within just a few months, we had already gotten 2 of those things, that being the electricity and the greenhouse. We needed those already. Those were just things that it just so happened that the community was able to provide to us. Things are moving super fast with Cooperation Tulsa. We are building power very quickly. Flat Rock is developing very quickly. We are developing connections within our community. We are making our community better able to defend itself. We are directly distributing aid to people that need it. We're learning how to grow food and developing agriculture while at the same time restoring the ecology. It's been an enormously successful year, and that's why I was so motivated to make this retrospective. So the plan for next year, for 2026, is we're trying to acquire an office shipping container. So you might have seen these. They're on like construction sites and stuff, where it's basically just like a shipping container, but it's got like a window and a door, and usually it has like an AC unit and heat and stuff like that, and it's insulated. These can cost around about $8,000 if they're used. So we're either going to try to raise the money for that, or if somebody here in my audience would be generous enough to donate something like that, I would be enormously, enormously grateful for that. And so would Cooperation Tulsa. Also, I should mention, we are actually filed as a nonprofit. So whatever you donate to us, you can write off on your taxes. So if I've got anybody in my audience who's looking for a tax write-off, feel free to contact me directly and we'll talk about how you could make a donation to Cooperation Tulsa. Also, we want to install solar power out on the land. So that's probably going to require us to apply for a grant or something. Doing the fundraising for that would be very prohibitive. It's probably going to be over $10,000 in order for us to actually get a really good solar panel array set up with everything that is involved in that and the infrastructure and all of that. So obviously, if somebody wanted to donate money for that or donate the solar panels, I suppose, we'd be very grateful. But I'm also just kind of telling you the direction we're hoping to go in the next year. We also want to expand the amount of in-ground garden beds we have and above-ground garden beds we have. Our desire is to almost double our production in the process, but that means that we're going to have to pay for water and we're going to have to pay for electricity. And if you want to help us pay for all of those things, you don't have thousands of dollars to donate, but you do maybe have $5 or $10 a month, maybe more. You should go over to our Open Collective and you should become a recurring donor to Cooperation Tulsa. And the link to that is down in the description. I'll emphasize again that Cooperation Tulsa, the majority of the money we have ever had in the organization has come from small dollar recurring donors through Open Collective. So don't be shy, because that is absolutely how we make the majority of our money, and any amount is helpful. It all adds up. And I also just want to mention that, a bunch of small dollar donations are actually very desirable because it means that you can actually sustain that. And it means that when the economy is bad, we're less likely to lose all of our donors in that process. People can afford $2 a month or $5 a month, but they probably can't afford $50 a month. So just understand that any amount you can spare is enormously helpful. Also, I just want to say that if you are in Tulsa or anywhere in Oklahoma for that matter, and you want to come and help Cooperation Tulsa, if you want to help us with Flat Rock or you want to get involved in any of our programs, you should just reach out, because we would be happy to get you connected with Cooperation Tulsa. Just know that numerous members that are currently in the organization found out about the organization through my YouTube channel. So just understand that you would be perfectly welcome. You can say that you discovered Cooperation Tulsa through the Anark YouTube channel. We'd be so happy to have you. In fact, you'd be kind of a shoo-in. You're already educated about all of this theory and all the praxis that's involved. So don't be afraid to reach out to us if you're watching this video and you're in Tulsa or really anywhere in Oklahoma. If you want to help us out at Flat Rock, if you want to get involved in the Popular Education Program or the Organizer Education Program or anything else, reach out to us. I'll have links there in the description about where all of our social media is and all of that. Anyway, that was the year of 2025 for Cooperation Tulsa. I hope you enjoyed the video. And now that all of the discussion of Cooperation Tulsa is finished with, I just want to remind you that I too make almost all of my money off of a bunch of small recurring donations. So if you have money to spare, if you approve of the project of this channel, if you want to see me be able to spend more time doing the work on this channel as well as the work that you've seen in this video, please go over to my Patreon and become a patron for any amount. Everything I said about the recurring donations to Cooperation Tulsa, all that's also true of me. Small dollar donations are what get me by and give me any kind of solvency as the economy isn't looking so hot. But I think that is it. I think I've pitched everything I've got to pitch here. I'll see y'all next time.